Hey, everybody. Great to see you. I hope you are doing well and that your children, your child, your students are in a good place and you're ready to learn more about what I have to offer. Welcome to Joshua Levy Talks. This is number 4, the RAE of Sunshine Approach. The RAE stands for Reflect, Analyze, and Engage. And away we go. So imagine that you are with your child, you're with your students, and they suddenly are in a state of what we're going to call a crisis. The crisis, the challenge that your child is demonstrating could be physical, it could be aggressive, it could be verbal, it could be nonverbal in terms of withdrawing. Doesn't necessarily have to mean that it is a physical crisis. So I know crisis can mean a lot of different things for a lot of different students, different children, especially in terms of neurodiversity. So I want you to imagine that your child is experiencing what you would consider a crisis, something that's a little or a lot beyond what the normal status of your child is. So once you can have that in mind, I'm going to walk you through the ray of sunshine approach to use this process to get your child, your student, to a place of calm, to an emotional state of calm. And that's also known as sunshine. The first part of the ray of sunshine approach is the R, and that's reflect. This moment of reflection is going to take place in about a second, if not less. What that means is while your child, your student is having the crisis, and this is the moments that it has started, and knowing that you're a parent, a guardian, an educator of your neurodiverse child, your neurodiverse student, you're going to know that they are in this crisis. So the first idea is to reflect, in that you want to reflect on your own state of mind, your own state of being as this crisis is unfolding. You're going to do some self check in. You're going to say, how am I feeling in this moment? Am I in a good mood? Am I in a bad mood? Am I in an overtly great mood? Something amazing happened just a little bit ago and I'm feeling fantastic about it. Or, just something's not going right in my personal life, or something happened a little bit ago with a family member, a colleague, something, or, something earlier with the child or the student. So we're reflecting in that moment of how we're feeling in this moment. That's the first thing we're going to do. Even though that your child, your student is in the crisis, we're going to focus on ourselves first. And once you acknowledge whatever mood that is in that moment, give yourself permission to say, that's okay. I'm in a great mood. I'm in a bad mood. I wasn't expecting this crisis. Because how you can accept how you're feeling is going to help support you navigate towards the next steps, which is going to be to analyze the situation that your student, your child is in, eventually leading to the E of engagement. So that's reflection stage. Even though it's a second, there's a lot going on here. It has to do with self-awareness. Self-awareness is a huge endeavor. It's a practice that we should be doing daily, weekly, monthly, yearly. We're not going to solve our self-awareness fully in a second. But that's the idea, is we're doing a check-in with ourselves. Once we acknowledge that we're in a great mood, a bad mood, we're going to say, you know what? What's happening right now for my child, from my student, it's not personal. I have to acknowledge that I'm feeling a certain way and that I am not going to interpret this moment as a personal against me, a parent or an educator. This is the child responding to something or thinking of something, manifesting their behaviors in such a way that we're deeming it a crisis. We want to reflect, get ourselves level set so we can take that breath and get in the moment and say, you know what, I am going to engage with my child, with my student during their crisis. One thing, if you have a family member or a team member nearby and you're just not feeling it, that you're going to be effective, this is part of that reflection, the R of the Ray of Sunshine approach, then you can simply say, hey, I need some help. And if no one else is around, yeah, that's not going to be the best. If you're not feeling it, you're going to have to muster up an extra deep breath, and that's certainly understandable. So you want to be thinking about finding somebody nearby, if available, to help you out and whatever that help looks like. You could walk them through how to intervene with your child, with your student in that moment, and so on and so forth. So we're reflecting. We're getting to a place where we know this is how we're feeling, and we're going to take those feelings and just take a deep breath as we go into this moment. Because if we're not in a good mood and we immediately go work with our child or our student, it's probably not going to go as well as it could. Or if we're in a great mood and suddenly our bubble is bursted, again, going to work with our child during their crisis is probably not the most successful it could be. So let's get through this reflection stage. Again, it's going to take about a second because we want to go to the next step of the RAE of Sunshine approach, the A, which is analyze. So we're going to analyze the situation. We're going to analyze the situation for safety. We're going to analyze to see if our child, if our student is in a place of physical harm to themselves or to others. For example, if your child, your student is throwing objects around a room, they could be books, they could be pots and pans, they could be desks and chairs, or tape, scissors, so on and so forth around the room that could hurt somebody. They could hurt themselves in process. That's something to consider. Are they hurting themselves against a wall? The floor could be perhaps something or an object in your house, in your classroom, or the space that they're in where this crisis is happening. So that's some physical safety things to consider when we're doing the analyze the situation. Also, are they psychologically safe? Are they currently near people, whether there's other children, other students, maybe it's other adults who are, for whatever reason, maybe they're using unkind language. Maybe the choices they're making right now are helping cause that for your child to have this crisis. So let's look at the environment that we're in, not only in terms of the physical ideas of the objects, but also the psychological component, the emotional component of where your child physically might be. So once we get to that analyze, do you need to remove things out of the way of your child that could be harmful? Those things, again, could be those objects. They could be people, if we're talking a potential psychological safety issue. And there's a few things we could do with that. You could do with that in that moment. You could ask that some of these adults, please kind of move away and give the child space. And so the child doesn't get hurt. And so the people near you or yourself does not get hurt. Again, we're analyzing for safety. And another option is to, and in your own best judgment, if you, of course, you're the parent, have your child, you're going to have to guide or escort them out of the space if possible, depending on that crisis. Now, if you're a teacher in a classroom setting or a school setting or somewhere, it's a school environment, again, this is not always the easiest thing to do. If you're able to guide them, if you're able to, even though it's during the crisis, ask them to come with you away from the space that could be potentially harmful. That's strongly encouraged during the analyze stage. So again, it's not perfect, but the idea is to try to remove anything that's harmful to your child out of the area, or perhaps trying to move your student out of that space as well. So we've gone through reflect, analyze, and now we're on to the E, engage. This is that moment where you're going to work, and you will get there with your student, your child, to a state of calm. All these three are the reflect, the analyze, and the engage are leading towards that sunshine, that state of calm. This is the E, engage. Here, you're going to try to figure out what's going on with your child. Perhaps you already know something that did set them off. You know what's known as the antecedent. That's the things that are taking place just before the behavior is happening. And you're able to determine that, so you can maybe talk with your child, listen to your child, your student, perhaps allow them to continue having that crisis, again, if it's safe, even if it's not pleasant physically for a moment, knowingly that the child may come out of that at some point. But the idea is you're going to engage. So perhaps that's standing near them, not at them. You don't want to perhaps go face to face with the child who's having the crisis, maybe near them. Maybe you have to stand away, but you're still there offering comfort and support. Using statements such as, hey, I see that you are throwing a book. I see that you are banging your feet onto the floor. I see that you're crying. I hear that you're yelling. So we're going to basically not even label, sorry, we're going to state what we're seeing as facts, and we're not going to deem it as anything with an adjective in there. I see that you are acting inappropriately right now, or you're saying really bad words. This child is in crisis right now, so we're doing our best to help promote a sense of calm and safety where this child can let the crisis go, but also that eventually we can get to that sunshine. And so those are some big steps. Again, it goes back to reflecting, get yourself in that headspace, that emotional space that you can help allow the child to feel safe so that you also are feeling calm, patient, and flexible to work with the child in crisis. And again, logistically, depending on what that means, it could be a little different if there's serious, significant harm, imminent harm. You might have to work a little bit differently in this moment. So we're engaging by listening. By we could be saying things such as I mentioned, the facts of, hey, I'm seeing you do A, B, C, and X, Y, Z. At least we're talking calmly and kindly, again, to the extent possible, to our child, to our student during this moment of crisis. And perhaps it might even mean we're not speaking. We're not doing anything. Perhaps we're standing far enough away, or again, in close proximity, depending on the situation. We're at least there as a physical presence, or for safety, or just to offer that comfort and support that, hey, I'm your teacher, I'm your parent, I'm your family member, I'm here, literally here for you. And you don't have to say anything. That simply means you're there on standby to look for anything further harming the crisis, but also there so you know that you are there for your child. Now, you might need to move away to help try to alleviate that crisis. And that might mean stepping out of the space entirely, or at least trying to stay in some eye contact, if possible, that you can at least see the child, your student, keeping an eye on them just for safety. But again, we're trying to let the child lead, but safely, without quite some sort of immediate, and again, unless it's deemed necessary, intervention. We're going for this engagement. So eventually, at some point, your child, your student is going to start de-escalating during the crisis. That could mean in a minute. It could mean in 5 seconds. It could mean in many, many minutes. It could be an hour. It could be more. I know that's not pleasant, but that's just real, and we have to allow for that. You're just going to have to practice that state of calm, because again, we're trying to get engagement into the sunshine approach, which is where your child will resume whatever activities you were doing before the crisis started. And that could be a lot of wait time. That goes back to that reflection part where you're acknowledging, hey, I'm in a good mood, I'm in a bad mood, taking that deep breath, ready to engage, ready to go through this with, not at, but with your child, with your student in the crisis. And further from noting things like, hey, I see that you're doing this, if those statements are upsetting your child, your student, don't say them yet. As the child shows signs that they are starting to de-escalate, try that approach again. Hey, I see that you are not, well, you're taking deep breaths. You might even simply ask, are you okay? We're trying to find out what the child might need. Maybe there's some hunger involved. If they're allowed to eat a fruit snack or an apple juice or something like that, simply offer that. Hey, are you feeling like a fruit snack? Are you hungry? They might say no. They might say something inappropriate. Maybe they say yes. You're allowed to ask questions during the crisis, especially as that de-escalation is happening, where they're a little more able to engage with you. And staying calm to the best of your ability during this time is the best route to go. So that allows that de-escalation from your child, your student, to come a little bit further along, maybe a little faster. And we're not adding more, if possible, to the crisis at hand. So we're asking questions. We're saying, we're trying to find out what they need in that moment. Perhaps, again, it's hunger. Perhaps it's rest. Would you like to be in a space where you can rest? Maybe that's fair if they're exhausted or they're tired from something. Maybe they need to, I don't know, it depends what the need is. And if you're able to help meet that need in that moment, if they're able to explain and share with you what that is, then definitely do it if it's logistically possible. If it's not, but you're able to get that something to them later, then perhaps it's as simple as, hey, I'm sorry I can't do that now, but if you give me, a few minutes, we can make that happen. That may not be what the child wants to hear in that moment, but you're trying. And at least you're engaging, you're dialoguing with the child as we're heading towards de-escalating. So during this engagement, we're going to keep our SOPs that we talked about in Joshua Levy Talks number 3, the serving others for tremendous success in mind. We're going to stay calm. We're going to stay compassionate. We're serving this child with success, setting them up for the success, to engage them as eventually they start to de-escalate. You process with them, hey, looks like you're okay now. That's great. I'm so glad you're okay. Can you help me out, understand what happened? And maybe the child will share with you, yeah, I was really upset because this happened in the classroom. I was upset that this happened at home, or I didn't get what I wanted. And that's okay. Whatever your child, your student is telling you at that moment, allow it, accept it. It doesn't mean you have to agree with it, the rationale for what led the child to be upset in the first place. You're simply acknowledging, yes, I understand. I hear you saying that you were upset because this and that happened in the classroom. You were upset because I said no, you couldn't have something. You don't have to argue. You don't have to, in that moment, get back and forth with anything. You're simply acknowledging. As the de-escalation continues, as the child becomes in more of a rational state, you can continue those conversations, and perhaps it's safe to process. Oh, are there better choices to make when you're feeling upset? And maybe your child can help you come up with those solutions on his or her own as to what those might be. You're welcome to process at a later time. It could be when they're in a state of calm, and say, hey, can we talk about what happened earlier today? And if they don't want to, don't push, that's okay. And if they're open to it, go for it and offer some strategies. Coach with your child, your student, how to come up with better, effective strategies of managing those really tough emotions they might be feeling that led to that crisis. So we're going to go back to the kind of tail end of the E, which is, again, engagement. So we're talking with the child. They're definitely de-escalating. That could be in the sense of they might fall asleep based on the extreme crisis they have just experienced. They might be very calm. Sometimes kiddos don't remember exactly what happened if it's that intense. But again, it all depends on the crisis. If they went into withdrawal mode and they stopped speaking, but now they're speaking again, all of which is fantastic, and encourage that and enjoy that, support the child as they're doing that. And then it can go back to, hey, we were in a classroom, we were doing some activities. Let's get back into that activity with the group. Fantastic. That's great. I'm really glad you're able to do that with us. I'm so glad you're here. Really offering those positive words of support and ideas to welcome them back to whatever activities you were doing. If it's at home, if it's at a grocery store, same idea, re-engaging your child, your student into those activities prior to the crisis taking place. And hopefully that they're out of the area that had caused, or the reasons that had caused the crisis to begin with, whether it was the situation they're describing that upset them to begin with, or perhaps certain people in the room at the time were upsetting them for whatever reason, and they're able to be with those people again. So that is the RAE of Sunshine approach, the reflect, analyze, and engage, getting us into your child, your student, into an emotional state of calm. And it's, could be anywhere from a few minutes to a few hours, depending on the situation that's at hand. So check out the Creative Outlet Method. It's a great resource for parents and educators of children with special needs. It's the Creative Outlet Method at-home activities for children with special needs. This is component 4 of the Creative Outlet Method. This is the RAE of Sunshine Approach. There's a great flow chart in that book that there's a nice visual that talks about how we go from reflect, analyze, engage, getting us into that, getting the child into the emotional state of calm. So good luck on your journey, and I look forward to speaking with you on Joshua Levy Talks next time, number 5, and we'll talk to you then.